I want to talk about being able to truly be yourself while maintaining eye contact with somebody. I've always struggled with this my entire life, and I still struggle to it to this day. But I'm definitely better at it than I've ever been, and not to say it's this great improvement according to how anyone else would perceive it, but to me, it is a major improvement, even though it's not much improvement if you were to read this, or if it was written down as what progress I've made. So I wanted to share this because I believe that the main reason why I struggle with this, so it may be helpful for another, is I, in a way, my ability to truly be myself in a way gets hijacked or gets suppressed. I could, in a way, call it dissociation. It's almost as if my brain shuts down. Or ultimately, in other words, everything I just said, to truly just be myself. So I'm not really myself when I try to make eye contact with somebody. I'm not saying outside of the situation I'm truly myself either, but I want to stay focused on the ability to maintain eye contact. And not just because it's good to make eye contact, or it's important, or it's the right thing to do, or it's healthy, or it's helpful, but rather because if you don't make eye contact, then I'd like to say you're really limited in who you are. And I think that's the fine line of why can't you make eye contact? Why is that such a struggle? Now, I understand some people could be intimidating, or it could be the context of the situation, or what have you. And I believe where I'm going to be coming from with this will actually even help in those situations. So I'm not trying to give an excuse of why it's okay to not make eye contact, or why it would be difficult. Because I believe, to a degree, it's all similar of why this is difficult to achieve to begin with. And in fact, if you are coming from the same place as I am coming from, then it doesn't matter who you're talking to. It also doesn't matter the context. Because to me, it's all, in a way, fear. Why can't I just look at someone in the eyes and have a conversation? Or maybe it's a conflict. Why can't I still look them in the eyes? Maybe I'm upset about something, or I'm happy about something. It doesn't even really matter. Maybe I have no opinion. Maybe my eyes will speak for me and I don't have to say anything. The whole idea here is being able to do this effortlessly. Because I think the root problem is not being able to truly just be yourself. Not truly be able to just have your own thoughts. Not being able to just express how you feel. Or what you think. Or anything. And I think that is what is being suppressed. I'd like to say the reason why this is occurring, again, there could be so many reasons, but if you're ultimately scared to just be yourself, well, that could be the main reason. What if you could just be yourself? What if that was the reason? Now, I'm hoping this could be helpful for anybody, even if Your reasons may be different. Because I think ultimately the goal is, regardless, is to be able just to, look at someone in their eyes and be able to talk. And not be scared. Not, hesitate. Not fumble your words around and not get the pronunciation properly. Kind of just like what I have just been doing with my hesitations and fumbling my own words. I don't think ultimately that means that you have this big problem or any fear. In fact, that could actually be a good sign, because you're really taking your time to think. Or it could just be that you're scared, and maybe not even know that you're scared. Such as what I just did right there. I spoke too fast. Am I scared? I could barely articulate. Take my time. It's up to the person who is experiencing this ability to think about this on their own, about themselves, because it really comes down to a self-realization, a self-awareness, to get to know your truth. So ultimately, I believe that if you could look at someone in their eyes and you could just talk, whether you're angry or not, or you have something to say that maybe they don't like, or maybe you have something to say that they would like, it doesn't matter. The ability to just do this is coming from who you are. And it's almost as if who you are gives you your ability of having thought, of having words, of having actions or behavior or anything. It doesn't matter. Who you are gives you your life. It gives you your ability to use your brain, use your mind, use your body. Use anything that has to do with anything that's a part of you. How is it possible to really be this you if you can't look at someone in the eyes? Why can't you? When we look at someone in the eyes, it's almost as if we are saying to them, and also simultaneously to ourselves. I'd like to say primarily it's saying to ourselves first, here I am. I know that sounds very simple and very basic, like, okay, here I am. The reality or the idea behind that means you're being vulnerable to be true to how you feel and think. What your likes are, what your desires are, what's important to you. And pretty much you're putting that out. But in order to put that out, you have to care that matters to you. And in a way, when things matter to us, this isn't the exact same thing, but when things matter to us, that is in a way a reflection that we matter, that you matter, that I matter. When you talk about something that's important to you, when you think about something that's important to you, when you do anything that you want to do, when you do anything, even just sitting and doing nothing, maybe that's what you would like to do. It doesn't matter what you do. It comes down to that you want to do it. That's what makes it important. And when it's important, in a way, what that is signifying is that you're important. A lot of people do things that it's not that important, it's not that big of a deal. And I don't want to confuse that with that you don't have any importance with yourself. Because sometimes we just like to put our feet up and kick back and do nothing and kind of consider that being, not that important. But I want to redefine or give my definition of what importance is. Importance to me isn't a hierarchy. Of course, there is a range of importance in almost everything, or in many things. You could say, well, that's not important, this is more important, and blah, 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 right? That's not where I'm going with when I say it's important. When I say it's important, it means it's something that means something to you. It has value, and not value on the level of, well, it feels good, or, it's fun. But rather, it almost like resonates like, this is what I want to do. It feels good, almost in a way, emotionally. Not necessarily emotionally. I mean, it could, but doesn't necessarily mean that has to be the case. But to me, it's important to you, let's just say, to do nothing. Now, ultimately, we can compare that to doing something really important, like making money, getting a job, improving a skill, improving your life. And we could say, well, no, that's like not that important compared to all these other things. And that's not where I'm going with it. Although I could, quite clearly see that, and I do believe that's true. But ultimately, what I'm trying to say is, when you do anything in life, no matter what it is, it could be whatever. It doesn't even matter. Because what matters is, it matters to you. If it doesn't matter to you, I'd like to say you might have a problem. Now, I want to define what it means for something to matter, because just like I did for the idea of what's important, I do understand that my definition of the context in which I'm explaining here of something mattering, it is different than what most people would believe what matters. My context of mattering is similar to the context of what's important. Meaning, there's no range. It's not something matters more or something matters less. But I do understand there's a range. Something could matter more, so therefore you'd probably put more time and attention and effort and whatever, because it matters more, versus something that doesn't matter. If something doesn't matter, then it's not going to get the same attention. Because it doesn't matter, right? What I'm trying to say here is, that's not what I'm referring to when I say you do something that matters. You do something that's important to you because it matters. Because it's not on the range. It's on the idea that it matters because it means something to you. You find value in it. It almost has like a connection to some degree with your heart. And in a way, I'd like to say, well, then that's a connection with who you are. And there's like an alignment. Meaning, everything's connected. It all comes from who you are. Which can show you if you don't know what to do with your time. I'm not saying you can't be bored, and I'm not saying that's a problem. What I'm ultimately saying is you may actually not really be attached to who you really are, or have a healthy attachment to who you are, not know who you are, and therefore you spend your time being alive doing things that there's no alignment with what you're doing. It may bring you pleasure or excitement or fun or something, but ultimately it's kind of like, it just doesn't do it for you. It's just there. It becomes something to do now. And I like to say that could show you that there's some kind of disconnection. Because ultimately, I'm not saying everything you do in life needs to have this like great connection. And I'd like to also say ultimately there should be with almost everything you do. This is what I want to do now with my time. This is what I want to do now with my time. This feels right, or this feels good, or not good because there's a pleasure reward thing, but because I value it. It means something to me. Because it's not a matter of it being meaningful or on a range of meaning, but it all comes down to I feel good with who I am. So what I'm going to spend my time doing, it's going to make me feel good with who I am. If it doesn't make me feel good with who I am, it's quite possible that I don't feel good with who I am. And this all ties back. I know I kind of went on different explanations here, but I was trying to give it some meaning behind the words I use, because it all comes back to the same thing. If you want to speak, where is that speaking coming from? If you want to share your feelings, where is that coming from? Just like doing anything. It doesn't have to have meaning. It doesn't have to be important. You have to have meaning. You have to have importance. That's what you speak and what you do and how you feel is all in alignment to that. It's all a connection. So I'd like to say, when you're not connected with yourself, your true self, your vulnerable self, the self that you are getting to know, the self that you are trying to love, the self that you're trying to understand, when that's not really there, or it's just not there at all, you can't really look at someone in the eyes. You're going to put your eyes down. You're going to look at them and turn away. I'm not saying that's not okay to do. That's okay to do. That could be very normal because it could be awkward or weird or whatever. You don't want to look someone in the eyes, or it's important to not look someone in the eyes for whatever the reason. But you realize you're doing it. And you do it on purpose. Because it feels right. You don't do it because you're being controlled by your suppression, who you really are. So when you're controlled by that and your mind takes over to say, no, don't be yourself, well, there's a whole gamut of things that are going to occur within such a simple process of, I just want to talk. Well, here are some things that are going to happen. If you can't really be yourself, well, first off, you'll try to make eye contact, but turn away and limit your listening, limit your emotions, limit your own creativity, limit your self-expression. It's in a way, you're shying away from it. You may also be the kind of person who then uh-huhs the other person. I'm ultimately not saying that's even that bad. What I'm saying is, within the context that I'm explaining here, this is all relevant from ultimately not being true to who you are. So when you're just uh-huhing someone and you're not true to who you are, you're not really listening. You're not really trying to understand. You're not really trying to get it. Maybe you're trying to just be agreeable. Maybe this is too hard to do, so you just want to end the conversation. Maybe you feel like they're annoying you, so you're trying to get them back. I don't know. Who knows why anyone is the way they are? Why are you the way you are? All I could say is, if you're not connected to who you really are, well, these could be, we can call them byproducts. We could call them signs or symptoms. Whatever comes from something is a reflection of it. It's a part of it. When you look at someone in the eyes, that's coming from a place. When you're trying to speak, that's coming from a place. When you're trying to share, that's coming from a place. When you're trying to listen, that's coming from a place. When you're trying to use emotions, that's coming from a place. When you're trying to feel your body, that's coming from a place. That place is everything. And that will determine how you interact with the world, with others. And when that place is really, I like to say you're really happy with who you are, you love yourself, you'll be able to have conversation, even in conflict, even in disagreement, even in misunderstandings. And doesn't mean you're going to have the kindest voice. No. But look at how you feel. You're not going to come off as rude and disrespectful, because that sometimes, I'd like to say, is coming from a hurtful place of someone trying to be themselves, and they can't, so it's like a struggle. It's almost like they're holding on to a rope and it's starting to burn their hands. You're probably not going to sound kind because it hurts. But a lot of people won't realize the pain they're having. They don't even realize the struggle they're having. However you want to look at it, they just don't realize. They come off certain ways. Whether that's good or bad is irrelevant. The point I'm trying to make here is, because it could be good, it could be bad. Who knows? It depends on the situation. The point I'm trying to make here is where you coming from determines that. In a way, where you come from with who you are creates that. Everything you do, no matter what it is, it could be anything. It could just be, I want to stand up. It could just be, I want to go get a glass of water. It could just be, I want to go exercise. It could be like, I'm really excited about this. It could be anything. I want to text my friend. I want to listen to some music. I want to go lay down. It doesn't matter. Everything you do comes from who you are. And who you are creates what you do. And if who you are isn't doing well, perhaps you think you're doing well, maybe you're not. So look at the signs and symptoms of what does it mean to not do well. And just because you could look at someone in the eyes doesn't mean you're doing well. Someone could look at another person in their eyes, and they could be checked out. They could look at someone in the eyes and not really be there attentive. They could look at someone in the eyes and not really have much of an opinion. They could look at someone in the eyes and be more withdrawn. They could look at someone in the eyes and it's almost as if they're just not connected with themselves. So it ultimately doesn't mean you have this great sense of self-awareness and you're connected with who you are and you love yourself and all this good stuff I'm trying to say. No. That's why you need to realize, how do you do any of this? And this could be applied to almost anything you do in life. I'm just taking one aspect of being a human in a very specific context of having a dialogue with somebody, talking to someone. And generally what I'm referring to is face-to-face. Not to say this couldn't be done over the phone, because you could still be true to yourself or not over the phone, but I'd like to say it's a little bit harder, or it's a lot harder, when you're in person. That's why people can get away with acting any way they want outside of the company of another, but the second they have to, be in that person's face, or in their company, or in their presence, however you want to look at it, They can't. There's more vulnerability. Or if they do, well, that front they put on, it's still there. Well, is that really who they are?